I call this pattern the FP Titanic. It is literally the unsinkable ant. There's only a few things you need for this ant. Some thin black foam that you can get from the craft store, or you can buy it online for fly tying. It's more expensive that way. And a little bit of polyester yarn. This is a very inexpensive fly to make. I think it cost me about, including the hook, about 7 to 12 cents to make it. So I just wrap some line on here, get it on tight, and get set up just past the eye of the hook, or sorry, the point of the hook. And then I'm going to tie in some of this polyester yarn. And I usually split it up a little bit because it's pretty thick, so I can use it a few times. So then I'll just tie in a piece at the end. Okay, I'm just grabbing my scissors here and I'm trimming up a small strip of the black foam. I think I'm making it about 4 or 5 inches long and barely a 1/4 inch wide, as you can see here. And then I just tie that in to the back of the fly as well, as far back as you can go. When you're tying the foam, you have to start with a couple loose wraps and then a couple snugger, is that a word? More snug, snugless, snuggy, tighter, some tighter loops until you've completely secured the foam on there. Now I'm just going to wrap the polyester and build up the back part of the body of the ant, the abdomen. You don't want it too big because the foam itself will also add to it, so you have to be careful not to go too big. So I just make a bunch of wraps here, and then I'll just get ready to tie that piece off. Now I got that piece tied off. Just trim off this top tab here, and now I can fold the foam over. Oh, apparently I need a little more. It's actually, I was just thinking that to myself. I should make this a little fatter. So you just want to make sure that you got a reasonably round abdomen. Those big black flying ants, they have a big arse. So there you go. Now you can start to see the shape. That's kind of the tapered abdomen that you're looking for right there. All right, let's tie that off again. And next time, mental note, I'll add a little more. It's easy to add a little more than it is to take it off. Anyway, so then I'm just gonna fold the foam over top the abdomen and then make a few loose wraps and then a few tight wraps. Now with the hackle for this, you can use white hackle, grizzly hackle, gray hackle. I have kind of a brown-black mix. I kind of like that it has a little bit of black in it, but for the patterns that I've used, I haven't found too much difference. The white seems to work really well with grayling, and the brown and the grizzly hackle seem to work really well with rainbows. So I tend to use this brown-black mix. Then you just want a few wraps in the middle. Kind of gives the indication of some legs. This is a really easy fly to tie. Once you've tied a couple of these, you can tie them in under a minute. Like, they are so fast. And as long as your line doesn't break off, like mine's about to here. I break my thread. Oops, yeah, it's thin thread, so what are you gonna do? No big deal. Happens to everybody. They may not show it to you in the videos, but it happens. I don't like to use great big thick thread for this, but you can use whatever thread you want. I'm not usually too particular, but I have a whole bunch of this thin thread. So then just make a few wraps again, and you can see I'm wiggling it back and forth just not to lay down any of the extra legs that I have in there. So this jiggly motion back and forth keeps me from actually tying any down. So that's it. I've added my thread back on, and now I can tie off this last little bit of feather. There we go. fold this back. Now I have to make the front bit of the body. So I'm going to tie in a little bit more of that polyester yarn. Now I love this polyester yarn because it doesn't get wet. It just doesn't get wet. So, and now you don't want too much in the front, and it's not a 3-segmented ant like, you know, a traditional ant. Although you probably could if you wanted to, but I don't find it necessary. So I just trimmed off a couple extra pieces here just to get them out of the way, and tie in this piece. Bunch of wraps tight, and then that's it. Cut her off, and then I'll make the head. Now I don't want it to be too big, as I was saying, so I just make I actually can't remember, but it's a lot smaller than the abdomen, that's for sure. And you don't have to go too big because again the foam will take over the, and that's getting close right there. Also, you want to make sure you have enough room with the eye when you're tying, because you have to tie off the yarn and then you're going to have to tie off the foam as well, and still leave enough room for a nice whip finish. So then I just fold over the last little bit here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a small piece of orange. You can use yellow or white foam, just a small little square, and I'm going to use that as an indicator because these flies are hard to see. So I'll just put a small piece here and tie it in, and then I'll trim it off once it's tied. Nice loose wraps to start. Make sure they're in position, nice and square, and then start tightening up your loops. There we go, getting tighter now, and you actually squeeze the foam down pretty good. And now I'm just going to make a couple wraps around the head, and then I'm going to trim it off tight to the eye. Trim off whatever little pieces, and then I'm going to do a quick whip finish after a couple here, and finish this fly up, and then do some trims. So quick whip finish, 3 or 4 turns should do it. You could put a small dab of head cement on here if you like. It's not going to weigh it down. I know it's a dry fly, and a lot of people shy away from head cement on dry flies, but this will not sink. Will not sink. So you can put a little UV on there if you wanted to. And now I'm just going to trim a little bit of this top hat off here, and just fix the hackles, push the hackles forward a little bit so they're spaced out a little nicer. And that is my FP Titanic. Just trim a couple of little pieces off. Now this fly fish is amazing, and like I said, it's pennies to make, and you can make them in any colors. You can make the red bodies, you can make brown bodies, and just having a few different colors of bodies in your kit will make a big difference. And if you want a fly that'll ride really high and get a really nice strike off the surface, this is your fly. There we go. I'll just tap that off with a little bit of head cement, and I am going to call this fly finished. Now here's a little trick too if you haven't seen this. Just use the leftover bits of your feather that you've used from the hackle, and then poke it through the eye, and then pull the rest of the hackle through. That one was a little bit big. Let's see, just clean it off a little bit, and if you can get there you go. Just snip that. It'll actually really help clean the goo out of the fly eye. It's a terrible example. It's just having a hard time getting that one through there. That's a tiny eye. It's funny because I have no problem getting the hook in there. But anyway, this technique usually works quite well, but this is a pretty weak one. And then you just pull the feather through, and it actually removes all the glue. But in this case, there wasn't any. And that's it. FP Titanic. If you wonder what it stands for, foam polyester. The foam polyester Titanic fly. One of my favorites. Give it a try.